Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 29th October 2024. Today again, we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we'll look into various dimensions of census in India. We'll try to understand what does NPR, NRC means and when India is going to conduct its next census. Then in our second topic, we'll look into various aspects of representation of women in judiciary. Then in our simplified section, again we will take 5 articles and we'll try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very important for your upcoming prelims 2025 exam. So please have a look on them also and stay tuned. So our first topic is the next census in India. As an UPSC aspirant, you would be often hearing the fact that data is very important for your exam. Why that data is important? Because that is used to substantiate various points that you write in your mains exam, to give weight to your answers. And one such source of that data is Census of India. But census was last conducted way back in year 2011 and since then it couldn't be conducted. And the census was due to be conducted in year 2021. However, due to COVID-19 and various other operational constraints, it couldn't be conducted on time. As per various reports that have appeared in today's Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, government is set to conduct the much delayed census next year and to complete the process by year 2026. Also, government is going to do the exercise of NPR or National Population Register with this census itself. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1, population and associated issues, and syllabus of your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions. So what does census mean? Census is a process of collecting, compiling, analyzing and disseminating information or demographic, economic and social data at a specific time of all the people residing in a country. If you talk about India's census, it is a two-step process involving house listing and numbering exercise, followed by the population enumeration. In the first phase, the house listing and numbering is done where we note down the information about various buildings and then about the people residing in those buildings. This house listing and numbering are done in the year before the census year, usually between April and September, and population enumeration happens between the 2nd and 4th weeks of February in the census year. So first house listing and numbering exercise, then the population enumeration. This word enumeration basically means act of counting or listing things one by one. If you talk about census in India, the first non-synchronous census was done way back in year 1872 and the first synchronous census was conducted in year 1881 under the Census Commissioner W.C. Plowden. If you talk about non-synchronous and synchronous census is a census which is conducted simultaneously across the country or region on a specific date and time, whereas non-synchronous census is conducted in phased or staged manner and it is conducted over a period of time, often limited to specific area, and often it is not conducted over all the country. Now, before moving further, you people please tell me in the comment box that who was the Viceroy of India during 1872 census and during 1881 census. The responsibility of conducting census in India is with the Office of Census Commissioner of India, which is office under the Ministry of Home Affairs. If you talk about the legal or constitutional basis of census in India, Union List entry 69 of the 7th schedule is in the Indian Constitution talks about the census. So census is a subject in the Union List where the complete jurisdiction lies with the Union government only. And there is a law that was made by the Parliament, that is Census Act 1948, which also talks about various processes that would be involved while conducting the census. If you talk about various features or novel features which would be there in the upcoming census, it is the 16th in series and 8th after independence which would be conducted, and it would be completely digital, where a mobile app would be provided to the surveyors and they will feed the information there then and there in that app itself to improve the accuracy as well as the dissemination of information. Also, there has been a facility of self-enumeration has been also provided for the first time under the upcoming census. So what does this National Population Register means? Basically, this NPR is the register of usual resident of the country, and it is mandatory for every usual residents of India to register in the NPR. And the legality of NPR is provided under the Citizenship, Registration of Citizens and Issue of National Identity Card Rules 2003. And under this rules, a usual resident is one who is the person who have resided in a local area for past 6 months or more, or a person who intends to reside in that area for next 6 months or more. And interestingly, this NPR includes both Indian citizens as well as the foreign citizens who has been residing in any one particular area for past 6 months. The objective of this maintenance of this NPR is to create a comprehensive identity database of every usual resident in the country. Means to get an idea who is the person who is residing in any one particular area irrespective of their nationality. Also, the first NPR was conducted in year 2010 and the updation was done in 2015 by conducting door-to-door survey. And the next NPR is going to be conducted with the census 2021 as we have talked about, and this NPR is again done by the Office of Registrar General of India, which is under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Then if you talk about the legal basis, again we have seen that under the rule 3 of the Citizenship, Registration of Citizens and Issue of National Identity Card Rule 2003, the rules are framed under the Citizenship Act 1955, and the NPR is different from the National Register of Citizens, that is NRC, which excludes the foreign citizens. So basic difference between NPR and NRC: NPR have both the citizens as well as the foreign residents, whereas in the NRC we exclude the foreign citizens. It is then exercise to identify Indian citizens. NRC is a register containing details of Indian citizens living in India and outside India. So before moving further, there is one state that has successfully completed the exercise of NRC or National Register of Citizens. Please tell me in the comment box that which is the state which has completed this exercise of NRC for the first time in India. Now, census is also very important for this exercise of delimitation. What is this delimitation? It is a constitutional mandate and is supposed to happen after every census. And this delimitation is a process that adjusts the number of constituencies of parliament and state assemblies in accordance with the latest population figures to ensure that the number of people represented by any member of parliament or member of legislative assembly is roughly same for the whole country, or in case of state, for that particular state. However, this exercise has been suspended since 1976 due to the lack of political consensus. So if this adjustment is happening after every exercise, there are apprehensions with the southern states who argued that if after every census that the delimitation is going to happen based on the population figure, then those states which have taken measures to improve their population, to address the issue of high rise in the population, they would be penalized. And they says that this would amount to punishing them for successfully meeting their population control objectives. Some northern states were not very successful in bringing or implementing these population control measures, and that led to an increased population in these northern states. However, that were done much better in the southern states. So these southern states says that this would be something that they are being penalizing for implementing this population objectives. Then a delimitation exercise in 2002 following the 2001 census involved only redrawing of the existing boundaries of the constituencies and not the change in the number of the constituencies. Means that whatever the number of seats or the constituencies that were allocated for that particular state, that were not changed. Only the boundaries of one constituency was adjusted or other constituency was adjusted based on the population figure, so that there is no as such change in the number of seats or constituencies that are there in any one particular state. As of now, this delimitation is suspended till at least 2026. The 84th Constitutional Amendment of 2001 said that the next delimitation can be held only based on the census that would be conducted after year 2026. So, if we will complete this process of census in year, let's suppose 2025, so next delimitation would be done only on the basis of the population or the census data that would be getting in the year 2031. Before that, we can't do this exercise of delimitation because of this constitutional amendment that was done in year 2001. And that is what this particular article is saying, that therefore even if the 2021 census had been held on time or in year 23-24, delimitation would have been done only after this 2031 census. And if the census, which takes 2 years or complete, begins next year, delimitation can theoretically happen immediately thereafter. Because let's suppose the data of the census is coming after 2026, so they might be supposed to be that census which is being conducted after year 2026, and that was the reason given in this 84th Constitutional Amendment Act. Also, what is the significance of this census? The first important significance is that it provides us with the population statistics. And for example, this 2011 census recorded a population of 1.2 billion people residing in our country, and which have increased multifold till now. So this data about the population helps in managing that demography properly. For example, let's suppose we have identified that we have an increased working age population in our country. So we would be able to tweak our schemes to provide them proper skills. Or if we are coming with the census data that elderly population is increasing, so we can come with some schemes that can provide better care economy, that can provide better social security benefits to these peoples. Also, it will help in better resource allocation, that it helps in equitable distribution of government resources and funds. For example, the 14th Finance Commission allocated 10.86 lakh crore to states for the period 2015 to 20. And similarly, all the Finance Commission which have came, they keep population as one of the important aspect for resource allocation between center and the states and various states. Now, recently 16th Finance Commission was constituted. Please tell me in the comment box that who is the chairman of the 16th Finance Commission. Also, this census helps in policy formulation, that it informs government policies and planning for the development. For example, National Population Policy, which came in year 2000, was based on the data that has came after the census. Then it also helps in better electoral representation, because census helps in determining constituency and their boundaries for fair political representation. It helps in ensuring that people are getting represented properly in the parliament, because ultimately it is the representation of the people in the parliament. In a democratic country like India, it is the people who are actually being represented through their member of parliament. So census helps in that, ensuring that people's representation are being done properly. And for example, delimitation process in India is based on the census data that happens every 10 years, and that impact the Lok Sabha seats that are delegated or that are being with the particular states of the India. Again, it also helps in socio-economic analysis, because it enables understanding of the social and economic conditions of the people. Based on that, government can come with some reform measures, government can come with some better policies or better schemes, and based on this data, government can also tweak or change in the policies. For example, 22% of India's population lived below the poverty line as per this data of Census 2011, which has helped in implementing various policies like Manrega and the National Food Security Act. Although there has been a socio-economic caste census that has also helped in identifying beneficiaries of these schemes, but census has also helped in shaping these schemes like Manrega and National Food Security Act. Also, this census is helping in cultural insights. For example, it captures diversity, languages and cultural practices in India. For example, there are 121 languages spoken across India. This data we got from the census 2011. Also, the census give us a labor market trends, that it assesses that workforce characteristics and employment patterns. For example, workforce participation rate of 39.8% was in India during census 2011. So based on this labor market trend about the rural areas, about the urban areas, about different working age population, again the government can shape their policies properly. Also, it helps in better public health planning because it supports health services planning and resource allocation. Based on this data that is coming, that what is the condition or support that is needed by the women, what is the condition and the support that is needed by the children, the data of IMR, MMR, etc. So based on that, the government can come with the better policies and a resource can be allocated on those areas to effectively lead a proper development in the country. What should be the way forward if you talk about the census? First, there is need for improved training of the enumerators. The people who are actually going for this survey, who are actually doing this counting, they should be trained properly so that there is no as such subjective bias of the enumerators and we can come with the better objective data. Also, there is need for better technology integration. For example, the mobile apps, etc. that has came, they can be linked with the blockchain technologies that can actually help in non-tampering of the data, and that will help in ensuring that the data that is coming is not tampered and it is foolproof data. Also, there is need for enhancing data protection to ensure that the privacy of citizens are properly shielded. Then there is also need for increased census availability in all regional language. For example, the 2011 census was in 16 languages and we need to improve on that also. More and more languages can be covered because that will help in people getting more aware, people understanding about the census better. Also, there is need for increasing awareness generation with the people about the importance of the census, and it will also help in increasing the public participation while doing this exercise of the census. Also, there is need for a census without delay at this point of time so that we can come with the better data, and that can actually help in more inclusive development of the country. A mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic is that census data influences governance, social planning and economic development. Discuss. Our next topic is women in judiciary. The context of this topic is that a lead editorial has highlighted various aspects of representation of women in judiciary. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2 judiciary issues related to women. Let's first look into some data that has been provided in the editorial itself. As per these data, as per this Supreme Court's State of Judiciary Report 2023, 36.3% of women are there in the district judiciary. Out of this, in 14 states, more than 50% of the candidates successfully recruited into the Civil Judge Junior, which is an exam generally conducted by the state itself through its state public service commissions. And as of January 2024, only 13.4% of judges in the High Court and 9.3% of judges in the Supreme Court are women. As per this Department of Legal Affairs 2022, approximately 15.3% of all enrolled advocates are women. So what is the insights that we can get from this data? That actually the representation of women in the lower judiciary is still little better as compared to the High Courts and the Supreme Court. But the major issue is with regard to the less interest of women or demotivation of women towards the legal studies, because very less number of people are actually going for the LLB courses and very less number of people are actually enrolling as an advocates. So until and unless their representation would be there in these courses and they would be registering as an advocates, less number of people can be appointed from the bar to the benches in the High Courts and Supreme Courts. So what are the major reasons for this low representation? The first important is the gender biases and the stereotypes. The general stereotypes that women should be in the home, they should do the household works, and they are only well capable to do some expressive roles, and the men's are well capable to do the instrumental roles. What are instrumental roles? That is to be in the army, to be in the police, or to be as a judge. What are expressive role? That is to work as a receptionist, to work as a nurse, etc. So this stereotyping that women are not well capable, they are not fit to be a lawyer, they are not fit to be a judge, is one important issue, that this patriarchal mindset is hindering the presence of women in the judiciary. Also, the work-life balance, because generally women are facing this dual burden syndrome, where on one hand they have to work also, and on second they have to take care of the home, their husband, their children, etc. So it becomes really difficult for them to balance these two things, and this continuous practice of elevation to the bench actually requires proper time to be given in the bar. That also hinders their elevation to the benches. Also, there is lack of role models that also doesn't help them in motivating towards taking this course or taking this legal field, because only less number of people are present in the higher judiciary, or very less number of lawyers. For example, you can name few very famous male lawyers in our country, but you would be hardly naming few female lawyers in the country who are very popular. Also, the networking barriers, because women do not have so much of network that they can get proper clients, they can also get their cases listed properly. This also demotivates them in this legal field. Also, the lack of infrastructure, that is also a major issue. From the data that is collected, or the survey that has been done by the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, 100 district courts have no dedicated washroom for women. And it is not only limited to the common washroom. There has been some instances in the district courts where there is no proper hygienic washroom even available for the women judges. Also, the basic necessity like the fans, AC, etc. are not available properly. So that also demotivates women, and that also hinders their presence in the legal field. Also, the selection biases. For example, some data, if you look into the number of names that were recommended by the collegium, there has been very less number that has been actually recommended by the collegium. And moreover, the number which were actually recommended, less number from the recommended names were actually appointed in the judiciary. That also comes to the conclusion that there is lack of an objective criteria that is being followed in the selection process in the higher judiciary. Also, the inadequate policies are not, because of lack of proper policies that can actually provide proper hand-holding and capacity building for women to come to this legal field. So that this inadequacy is also one of the important reasons. If you look into this data that has been provided by the female labor utilization in India, April 2023, 67.2% females are there which are outside labor force, and 34.7 are only doing their domestic duties. Also, that why the Indian women are out of job market, this is again the same data from this female labor utilization in India, April 2023, which has been done by the Ministry of Labor and Employment. 44.5% women says that childcare, personal commitment in homemaking is the reason why they are out of job market. 33.6 want to study, 9.3 health, age or related reasons. So you can see that this burden of dual role, that they have to take care of children's, they have to take care of homes, is one of the important factor that why they are outside the job market, as well as that is the important reason why they are outside the legal fields. Also, if you look into this data, that is from the gender data portal of World Bank Group, that the women at the workplace is very vulnerable. Okay, if you look into this data of India and the world, in India it is much higher, the vulnerability is much higher as compared to the global average for the women. The women face violence, they face various difficulty at the workplace. That also demotivates them for their representation in the legal fields. There was a web series that has came on the Netflix that also gave some insights about the legal field, in which there was this female lawyer who was facing lot of difficulty in getting clients, and there was lack of proper infrastructure even for basic sitting in the district courts. Also, this new intern which came, she also faced lot of difficulties. And even if you'll observe that web series properly, you will see that there are only few female members who are actually doing practice in that district court. That also emphasizes on the points about the abysmal condition of women in the district courts at large. So what should be done? First, there is important need is the institutional, social and behavioral change. We have to correct the patriarchal mindset in recommending and approving the names, and for that we should follow a proper objective criteria. The recommendation should be based on the merit only. Also, there is need for inclusive recruitment policies. For that, there can be a gender-based quota that can be provided to females for judicial appointments to improve their condition, to improve their representation. Also, we can have better awareness campaigns, and that can encourage more women to pursue the judicial careers. For example, Delhi High Court Women Lawyers Forum promotes women in law. Also, the equal promotion opportunities, that should be, for that we should again follow our objective criteria, merit based, and the policy should be very transparent. Why a particular person is being promoted or why a particular person is not being promoted, that information should come in the public domain itself. Also, there is need for work-life balance support. And for this, policy support is very needed by the government. For example, Delhi High Court provides for creche facilities, where female who have a child less than 6 years old, they can come and there is proper care that would be provided and they can focus on their work. Similar kind of facilities if would be extended to majority of the courts in India. Women who are unable to come to the fields or legal fields, they might find it comfortable to do practice, and then later part of the time they might be elevated as the judge in the High Court or the Supreme Court. Also, the specialized training can be provided about the leadership training for aspiring female judges. For example, judicial academy workshops can be done in various colleges, universities, etc., so that more and more women can come in front for these legal fields. Also, the scholarship for legal education, for example, SIU Bangalore scholarship programs encourages women in law, and various gender sensitization programs needs to be done at a much faster rate. We have to educate judiciary on unconscious gender biases. We have to first accept this problem that there is inherent gender bias. Then only we would be able to eliminate that. And moreover, when we will understand that there is bias, we have to also work on improving that or eliminating that bias. Only then representation of women can be done properly. And why this is very important is because of the fact that the 50% of population, when their representation would not be there, how can we even think of that justice would be served them properly? How can we even think of that the proper policies would be made or proper judgments would be coming? In this regard, only the editorial says that there has been a committee that was formed for building various infrastructure in various high courts. Very less number of female judges were the part of those committees which were actually making the infrastructure for various high courts. When these women judges are not part of that committee, how can we even think that that infrastructure would be women friendly? The toilets or washrooms would be women friendly. So because of this inherent bias and lack of representation, it is creating a domino effect where we are facing a lot of issues. So a mains practice question that you people can write from this topic is that discuss the reason for low representation of women in Indian judiciary, suggest comprehensive measures to improve women's representation at all levels of judiciary. So our next topic is rising expenditure of election. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, constitutional bodies, transparency and accountability and elections. And this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 8. So the article starts with the context of US elections, and it says that the total expenditure for US presidential and congressional elections in November 24 is estimated at around US $16 billion, equivalent to almost 1,36,000 crores. And according to this Center for Media Studies, the total expenditure by various political parties for the general election to the Lok Sabha this year was around 1 lakh crore. So you can think of the fact that this was just the expenditure for the general election, that is Lok Sabha election, and the assembly elections were already done apart with these Lok Sabha elections. So if we will include that, this figure will inflate further. Also, every year we have some or other assembly elections. So you can think of the fact that how much amount we are spending every 5 years for conducting election only. Also, if you talk about the election expenditure in India, there are limits that are set by the Election Commission of India, and the last limit was set based on the committee that was formed in year 2020 by the Election Commission of India, and the committee recommended the expenditure limit based on the inflation figures and various other factors. So the Election Commission of India says that the election expenditure limit for candidates is 95 lakh per Lok Sabha constituency in a larger states like Uttar Pradesh, etc., and 75 lakh in smaller states like Goa. With respect to legislative assemblies, they are 40 lakh and 28 lakh for larger and smaller states respectively, and these limits are set from time to time by the Election Commission of India, and there are no limits on the expenditure of political parties during elections. This is a major issue which is leading to high expenditure. Also, this is the expenditure limit that is set. Okay, the candidates does a lot more than the said limit. Okay. What are the international standards? In the US, financing for elections happen primarily by contributions from individual, corporation, political action committees. While there are limits on individual and political action committees, contributions to candidates, various judgments in the US Supreme Court have resulted in creation of super political action committees on which there are no limits for the spending. So these political action committees are the actually group of people who are funding the elections. And what they actually want in lieu of that, in future, they want that the policy would be tweaked according to their needs in future after a particular election is being won by any one presidential candidate. If you talk about the challenges which pertain with regard to the expenditure, election across the world have become very expensive, and such increased expenditure is met primarily through large donation, create unholy nexus between the elected representatives and donors who seek favors. These acts as an entry barrier into the electoral politics for many well-meaning citizens. For example, a middle class person or a person who is not very financially sound, can he contest election today? Answer is no, because you can see that how much expenditure is actually required. He can't do his campaign properly without proper funds with regard to, because of the fact that so much money is involved in the campaigning, in the promotion of the candidates. So these people or the middle class people do not have that money, and that is leading to promotion of dynastic politics, because the people who are already elected, they have money and their sons or daughters are contesting, their family members are contesting the further elections. And a person who is middle class or who is poor, he do not have resources to contest the election, and that is why there is low representation of women or the lower caste people or the middle class people in the politics. In India, the candidates from all major political parties breach the election expenditure limits by a wide margin. Further, there are no limits on political party spending during elections. The official expenditure declared by the BJP and Congress for 2019 elections were 1,262 crores and 820 crores respectively. According to data from CMS, 50,000 crore was spent by various parties during the 2019 elections. And the report from CMS also suggests that the 35% of this money was spent on campaigns and publicity, while 25% was illegally distributed among voters. CMS has estimated that spending during 24 elections by various political parties was close to 1 lakh crore, and such inflated election expenditure fueled corruption, resulting in vicious cycle. Also, it is not helping us in properly exercise of the democratic mandate, because when a particular candidate is buying a vote of any particular poor person through votes, it is against the democratic spirits, it is against the democratic values, it is against the free and fair elections. Also, if you look into this data that has compiled from this by again the data from CMS, you can see there has been a consistent increase in the expenditure in the election, and after the 24 elections we have seen a humongous rise in the election expenditure. So what can be the possible reforms to address this issue? The first important reform, that there were various committees like Indrajit Gupta committee that was set up in year 1998. Law Commission report in 1999 have advocated for state funding of election. That would mean that government partially bears the election expenditure of candidate nominated by the recognized political party. That instead of persons or political parties giving funding for the contesting elections, there would be state funding, that the government will fund that, okay, we are giving you money, please come and contest the election based on the and whom they will fund? They will fund the candidates who are nominated by the recognized political parties. However, there has been various issues that might arise from the state funding, that the small parties may suffer, or there might be that more and more corruption can come, that people are taking money from the state also and they are further spending on their own also. So again, the writer says that the feasibility and the mechanism for implementing this measure are doubtful in present context. At what structure or at what architecture we are conducting election at this point of time, it would be very difficult to implement this state funding. Also, the simultaneous election were touted as a panacea for addressing the issue of rising expenditure in the election. There are challenges on account of principles of federalism and constitutional amendment to this idea that would be required, because to conduct the simultaneous elections, there are various constitutional amendments that are required, and it should be also passed by the states, because there are various provisions which is infringing on the federal provisions also. There has been a committee that was set up under Shri Ramnath Kovind ji, our former president, and they have submitted their report with regard to the simultaneous elections. And the cabinet of the central government have also cleared that simultaneous elections. Also, the writer said that it must be noted that this mechanism may rein in campaign and publicity expenditure to some extent. However, without curbing the illegal distribution of cash to voter, any form of simultaneous election will not have a significant impact on the election expenditure. We have to understand that this thing, that majority of the campaigns or the distribution of money that happens with the people is in the cash itself. So it would be very difficult for us to track that money and to curb the distribution of cash, even if we go for the simultaneous elections. Also, in some practical step that has been suggested, that these steps are based on the 2016 report on proposed electoral reforms. First, that law must be amended to explicitly provide that financial assistance by a political party to its candidate should also be within the candidate's prescribed election expenditure limits. As of now, the limit that has not been imposed on the political party expenditure, that needs to be done away with. Our focus should be that any particular candidate, their election expenditure individually and the party expenditure all should be considered, and there should be limit on that how much can be done by the particular contesting candidate and how much can be done by the political party. Second, there should be a ceiling on the political party expenditure. Again, we have talked, this may be kept at not more than expenditure ceiling limit provided for a candidate multiplied by the number of candidate of the party contesting the election. Finally, additional judges may be appointed in High Court for the speedy disposal of election related cases, which would act as a deterrent against the violating various expenditure norms or expenditure limits that are provided to the contesting elections. And these reforms would require bipartisan political support. They need to be implemented fastly. So until and unless there is a political consensus across the political parties, it would be very difficult to implement these policies. So some prelims pointer, that this Representation of People Act, okay, the section 77 of this Representation of People Act actually talks that every candidate keep a separate and correct account of all the expenditure incurred between the date on which they have been nominated and the date of the declaration of the result. So legality of this declaration of expenditure is also provided under this RPA 1951. Also, the submission of the election expenditure statement to the Election Commission of India within the 30 days of the completion of the election, this should be done without fail. An incorrect account or expenditure beyond the cap or beyond the ceiling or the limit that has been done by the Election Commission of India can lead to disqualification of the candidate by the Election Commission of India for up to 3 years under the Section 10A of Representation of People Act 1951. So it is not that everything is done in air only, but there is proper legal basis for these expenditure limits. Now briefly let's discuss about the difference between RPA 1950 and 51. RPA 1950 provides for the framework for conducting elections in India, whereas the RPA 1951 provides the actual method by which the elections would be conducted. It provides for various minute details that how the elections would be conducted, how the electoral rolls would be prepared and everything. The delimitation of constituency, voter qualification, seat allocations, everything is provided under RPA 1950. Whereas election machinery, how would that be selected and how that will be implementing the whole electoral process, the preparation of electoral rolls, updation of electoral rolls, polling procedures, corrupt practices that may lead to disqualification, and the dispute resolution in case of any incident that may arise. So RPA 1951, you can say, is more about the pre-election preparation, whereas the RPA 1951 mainly talks about the actual conduct and the post-election matters. And you can say that 1950 RPA is more of the complementary to the 1951 Act, and 1951 directly implements various provisions of the 1950 Act. Our next topic is that Supreme Court said that the Aadhar cannot be used as a proof of date of birth. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, Government Policies and Interventions and E-Governance. And this has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 18. So the context is that the Supreme Court held last week that Aadhar cannot be used as a proof of age, especially when the other official documents that have been recognized as valid proof, such as school leaving certificate, are available. And according to this Unique Identification Authority of India, that is UIDAI, which issues the Aadhar, the unique number, that is the 12-digit Aadhar number, is intended to only provide a universal identity infrastructure. That is, Aadhar is a proof of identity. It can help you in ensuring that who is the person. It can help you in providing your identity. For example, let's suppose there is a person named Himanshu. So his Aadhar number will help in ensuring that by matching his biometric, he will be able to identify himself as Himanshu in the banks, while taking SIM cards, or while taking any benefits of any government schemes. Also, for example, for eKYC, that is know your customer in the banks, or for availing benefits like scheme in the PM Kisan, this biometric information can be used, and that can help in identifying that person, that he is the actual beneficiary, he is the intended beneficiary, with the detail that are provided, with the biometrics that are provided. And that is why this Aadhar and biometrics is being used for various schemes, like at the point of sale, for providing benefits under the National Food Security Act, for sale of fertilizers through point of sale, and various other places. And why this particular information came is because of a case that has came in front of a Supreme Court bench under Justice Sanjay Karol and Ujjwal Bhuwan, who were determining the compensation to be given to the family of a man who died following a motorcycle accident in August 2015. And in December, the members of deceased family instituted a claim petition before the Motor Accident Claim Tribunal, Rohtak, Haryana, and 2017 April, the MACT directed the insurance company to give 19,35,400 rupees. As per this Motor Vehicle Act 1988, in case of death, the age of a person is determined by the compensation to the person is determined by the factors including the number of dependents of the deceased, had income, and the age of the person. So age is one of the important component based on which the compensation would be provided based on the Motor Vehicle Amendment Act, this 1988. Now age is used to determine the multiplier, means the total loss incurred by the family is calculated and multiplied by a certain number based on the age. So what happened? Actually, there was a confusion with regard to this person who actually died. His age was somewhat different with regard to his school leaving certificate, and his age was different with regard to his Aadhar. So there was mismatch between the date of birth in the Aadhar and the school leaving certificate. So as per tribunal, this amount was said based on the date of birth of school leaving certificate. But the insurance company is saying that since his age is different in the Aadhar and that is much higher, so liability of the insurance company should be much lesser based on the date of birth in the Aadhar. However, the Supreme Court says that the date of birth or the age of the person should be determined based on the school leaving certificate, not based on the Aadhar. And the court also noted that under the section 94 of the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Children Act 2015, the matriculation or equivalent certificate from the concerned examination board can be used as evidence to determine the age of the person brought before the board of committee under the act. It also referred a series of high court judgments that held school leaving certificate should be considered instead of Aadhar to determine the person's age. The purpose of Aadhar is to establish an individual's identity and not their age. The court held in its 2018 ruling holding the constitutionality of the Aadhar Act. Supreme Court said that the aim of the unique 12-digit number under the Aadhar was to serve as a proof of identity. Case Puttaswamy versus Union of India. The court also pointed to UIDAI circular issued in 2023, again reiterating that Aadhar is not a proof of date of birth. Also, you tell me that whether Aadhar can be a proof of citizenship or not. Again, this Aadhar, if you look into the history of this, it was conceptualized by UPA government as unique ID for below poverty line families to access the government scheme. However, the exercise never quite got off on the ground, and National Identification Authority of India Bill 2010 was introduced in Rajya Sabha but did not reach the stage of voting. It lapsed. In 2016, the NDA government again introduced this Aadhar Targeted Delivery of Financial and Other Services, Benefits and Services Bill, which was quickly passed as a money bill under Article 110 of the Constitution, which allows to bypass Rajya Sabha if it meets certain conditions. Aadhar Act was challenged before the Supreme Court by Justice K.S. Puttaswamy, retired judge of Karnataka High Court, and unfortunately Justice K.S. Puttaswamy died yesterday. In 2018 decision, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of Aadhar, the mandatory linking of Aadhar and PAN, and the use of Aadhar to establish the identity of the individual seeking benefits and subsidies under the government social welfare schemes. Court, however, held that Aadhar could not be made mandatory for opening a bank account, get a mobile phone, SIM, and the admission to educational institutions. It should be voluntary here. It should not be mandatory. Some prelims pointers for Aadhar. It is a 12-digit unique identification number issued by UIDAI. It uses biometric data like fingerprints, iris scan, along with demographic details like name, address, date of birth of the person. And to get Aadhar is voluntary and not mandatory, but it is widely used for various services like opening bank account, filing income tax return, and receiving government subsidies. Because Aadhar has actually helped in addressing the corruption and the leakages with regard to the various government schemes, because it helps in identifying the actual beneficiary or intended beneficiary. Again, various benefit, it enables the direct benefit transfer of subsidies like LPG and PM Kisan, etc. It supports the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and the JAM Trinity along with the Aadhar, that is Jan Dhan, and the mobile phone has actually revolutionized the digital payment infrastructure in India. The eKYC, that is Aadhar based Know Your Customer, simplifies and speed up the verification process for services like banking, telecom, and other utility services. Also, if you talk about the money bill, Article 110 of the Constitution defines the money bill, and it says that money bills are those bills which contains only provision dealing with all or any matter specified in Article 110 subclauses. For example, the matter related to imposition, abolition, remission, alteration, regulation of any tax. For example, regulation of borrowing of the money or the giving of any guarantee by the government, custody of the consolidated fund of or the contingency fund of India, payment of money into or withdrawal of the money from any such fund, appropriation of money out of the consolidated fund of India, and declaration of any expense to be expenditure charged on the consolidated fund of India, or the increasing of the amount of any such expenditure, charged expenditure which are not votable, which are not voted in the parliament, the receipt of money on the account of Consolidated Fund of India or public account of India, or custody or issue of such money, or the audit of the accounts of union or state. If you talk about some good features of the money bill, if any bill which has any provision other than money provision as mentioned in the sub clause is not money bill, and constitution give power to the Lok Sabha speaker to actually decide or to take a final call if any question arises whether a bill is money bill or not. He is the person who certifies that a bill is money bill or not. Again, the speaker decision is final and it cannot be challenged in any court of law. And Rajya Sabha have limited power with regard to the money bills. They actually cannot amend, but they can recommend the changes and they have to pass within 14 days. And Lok Sabha is not bound to accept the changes that are recommended or the amendments that are recommended by the Rajya Sabha. And in this regard only, we can conclude that the Lok Sabha has the supreme power in terms of money bill. Now, there has been various questions asked from these topics. That this was the question that was asked in year 2018, that Aadhar can be used as a proof of citizenship or domicile. Once issued, Aadhar number cannot be deactivated or omitted by the issuing authority. Please comment your answers in the comment box. And this is the second question. Again, this was asked in year 2020 after the Supreme Court gave judgment. Please comment the answer of this question also in the comment box. Our next topic is challenges of fertilizer imports in India. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, agriculture and subsidies, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 8. The article starts with that with the crisis continuing in the Ukraine and the Gaza, experts and policymakers are concerned about the further increase in the prices of components used for making petroleum-based chemical fertilizers, because the geopolitical situation is somewhat disrupting the supply chains. And when petroleum products supply will be limited or that would be impacted, that will lead to impact on the production of the fertilizers. Apart from that, there were various countries like Russia who are major exporter of the fertilizers. After the Russia-Ukraine war, that export has been also hampered. That led to crises in various parts of the country. Also, the availability of fertilizer was impacted. The Agriculture Minister of Uttar Pradesh says that state has the stock of fertilizers for only 10 more days, and that too in the situation when the Rabi cropping season, the sowing season for the Rabi crops is in front of us. And that is, the article says that the sowing of winter Rabi crops has started in almost all the wheat growing states, and fertilizers such as DAP and NPK are essential for its growth, and the availability and supply of that is major concern. As per the data from Ministry of Standing Committee of Parliament on Chemical and Fertilizer in August 2023, that was tabled, and the report on planning for fertilizer production and import policy on fertilizers including GST and import duty thereon. 20% of domestic requirements of urea, 50 to 60% of domestic requirement of DAP, and 100% of domestic require for MOP or potash is met through imports. That brings us to the points that we have to ramp up our domestic production, because we are mainly dependent on the imports of these fertilizers from various parts of the world. And you can see that center is also spending a lot on the subsidy that is providing to ensure a proper affordable availability of the fertilizer. The center allocated 1.7 lakh crore as fertilizer subsidy under the budget estimate for 23-24. Out of this, indigenous P and K fertilizers, the subsidy amount was 25,000 crore and 18,500 crore for imported P and K fertilizers. And for indigenous urea, this subsidy was 1,04,063 crores, and the subsidy for imported urea was 31,000 crore. So what is the point is that, let's suppose we can ramp up our domestic production, the amount that we are actually spending on providing the subsidies, if that amount can be routed to improve the productivity of the units that are producing the fertilizer, to improve their efficiency, this need for subsidy will reduce manifold. Also, that the situation in the Ukraine and Gaza that is happening, or all the Middle East and West Asia, the crisis that is going on, that can impact the crisis on the oil prices, which will spill over to the byproducts such as fertilizers, because many of the crude oil and various other components like naphtha etc. are very important for the production of the fertilizers. So Indian fertilizer imports are mostly from the countries such as China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc. And worsening situation in West Asia and ongoing conflict in Russia and Ukraine region could impact the import from these regions. At this point of time, what India can do? The first is that we have talked that we have to enhance the fertilizer production capacity. Second, we have to shift our farming practices to organic farming or zero budget natural farming. Third, we can use better technologies like use of nano urea, which can reduce the use and demand of the siloed urea to manifold. Also, we have to enhance the capacity of the factories which are making these new kind of urea like nano urea. And there is need for policy initiative that can aim at creating environment that would facilitate investment in the public, cooperative and private sector engaged in the manufacturing and the marketing of the fertilizers. And there was a committee that was set up in 2004. There was a committee that was set up, that is by the parliament, that is standing committee. They says that it is satisfying to note that 6 new urea plants have since been set up, each having an annual production capacity of 12.7 lakh million metric ton, thereby adding urea production capacity of 76.2 lakh metric ton per now. And 36 urea manufacturing units are functioning, out of which 4 new urea units in Ramagundam, Gorakhpur, Sindri unit, and Fertilizer Corporation of India Limited and Baroni unit of Hindustan Fertilizer Corporation Limited have been revived by setting of new gas-based greenfield units. When we have shifted to this gas-based greenfield units, the cost of the production have reduced manifold, and that have led to profitability of these companies, and also this has helped in ramping up the production. If you talk about the data, you can see that this is the data from International Fertilization Association. In the year 2021, the largest exporter was the Russia, and after that Canada was there. Also, you can see that China is one of such country which is a major producer of nitrogen and phosphate fertilizer. Canada is a major producer of potash, and Russia is a major producer of NPK fertilizer. And if you look into this data, India spends at least $7.18 billion for import of these fertilizers, and it is just less by Brazil to some extent. Otherwise, we are one of the highest importers of these fertilizers, and that is because of the lack of proper domestic production in India. Now, if we talk about the prelims pointer, NPK fertilizers, the nitrogen that promotes leaf and stem growth, and that helps in stimulating the chlorophyll production, and it is very vital for photosynthesis and overall plant health. The phosphorus, that is essential for root development and flowering, and it helps in transfer of energy within the plant, and that supports the strong growth. Potassium, it enhances the disease resistance, improves drought tolerance, and strengthens the plant overall structure, that actually aid in fruit and flower production. If you talk about the nano urea, to some extent that the 50 kg of the urea can be equal to the 500 ml of urea. It reduces the input cost, that is the cost that is being used by the farmers for providing the fertilizer. It is more environment friendly because it is, when we are using nano urea, it is being absorbed by the stomata present in the leaves itself, and it is not going into the soil, and the pollution in the soil, leaching to the groundwater table, all that environmental issue that was arising due to the use of this urea, physical urea, that is reducing. Also, it improves the nutritional value of the plant. It increases the farmer's income because of the less amount that they are using for the inputs. It enhances the crop productivity because the absorption of urea is much better as compared to the earlier traditional urea that we were using, and it is cheaper than conventional urea. Again, some other prelims booster point, the difference between the organic farming and the natural farming, that in the organic farming we uses organic fertilizers like compost and the manure, whereas in natural farming we avoids this external inputs altogether, even the organic manures, etc. There is complete non-disturbance of the natural soil in the land. Also, if you talk about microbial action, it depends on the addition of the organic material. If we will add, then the microbial action can happen, whereas the natural farming encourages the microbial activity and decomposition on the soil surface. If you talk about the regulation of the organic farming, it is subject to specific guidelines for organic certification, whereas the natural farming is generally less regulated. Also, the cost, it can be more expensive in the case of organic farming, whereas the natural farming is generally considered low expensive because less number of inputs and the external things are being used. Our next topic is Justice K.S. Puttaswamy, who was a champion of privacy and who challenged the Aadhar Act, died yesterday. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2 fundamental rights. Topic is right to privacy, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 12. He was the former High Court judge of the Karnataka, and he became a petitioner in the Supreme Court year after his retirement in year 1986. He have initially challenged the Aadhar identity scheme, and he said that the biometric registration process and linkages to the public welfare and essential subsidies amounted to the sheer violation and citizens' right to privacy. They had apprehensions that the biometrics data that is being used, that might be leaked tomorrow, that can undermine the privacy and the overall integrity of the citizens. The 9-judge bench actually heard this case, and they in August 2017 this bench was constituted, and Justice Rohinton Nariman wrote about this privacy judgment that it was not a elitist construct. The desire for privacy was fundamental to every human being, rich or poor. The privacy of any person is important. It is not necessary that if a person is rich, he is financially sound, only then his privacy is important. And our current Chief Justice of India, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud ji, said that privacy is a natural fundamental right inseparable from the human personality. Justice Puttaswamy litigation to champion privacy touched every walk of life. The verdict became very instrumental to the abolition of adultery as a crime. You please tell me in the comment box that which was the section of IPC which dealt with the adultery. And at one point, the court had even to deal with the argument that right to privacy subsists even after death in a case of person. For example, when verification of the fingerprints of the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha was being done from her Aadhar data. Also, the privacy judgment have been widely used in various other cases like Pegasus spying case and other. Now, prelims booster point about this particular case, that is Justice K.S. Puttaswamy retired versus Union of India case. Supreme Court says that right to privacy is intrinsic part of Article 21, that is right to life and dignity. And court overruled previous judgment from the cases such as MP Sharma case 1954, Khadak Singh case 1962, which earlier ruled that right to privacy is not part of any of the fundamental rights. Also, the decision was delivered by 9-judge constitutional bench, which was one of the rare occasions in India judicial history where such a large bench was convened to decide on the fundamental rights issue. You please tell me in the comment box that which has been the largest constitutional bench which has been constituted till date. Also, the judgment emphasized the importance of individual autonomy and human dignity, affirming that privacy is integral to the exercise of personal liberty and freedom of choice. And threefold test was recommended to determine if privacy rights can be restricted or not. For example, the first test is legality, means that whether a particular law is undermining or whether particular act is undermining right to privacy is not. The first test is legality, means there is a proper law by the parliament or not that is backing that particular policy or scheme. Then the necessity, that whether it is actually needed to go for collecting that data about the person, and the proportionality, that whether that privacy rights can be restricted or not is based on the benefit that particular undermining of the rights of the privacy will serve. If the proportional in which the right is undermining, it is also leading to the benefit, then that would not be null and void. Also, it helps in any invasion of privacy is lawful and justified. That if any invasion is happening and if that is following all these three tests, means it is legally, it is law backed, it is necessity for overall policy implementation or overall governance structure, and it is also passing the proportionality test, means the invasion is directly proportional to benefit it is serving, then that will be justified and lawful. Also, the right to privacy judgment helped in push for comprehensive data protection legislation in India, leading to formation of personal data protection bill that is aimed at safeguarding the citizens' personal data. Our next topic is India's private military aircraft production facility, the first private military aircraft production facility. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, indigenization of technology, defense technology, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 40. So context is that spread over 50 acres in Vadodara, Harni area, India's first private military aircraft induction facility has been launched by the Prime Minister of India and Spain, and it will employ at least 3,000 personnel indirectly and provide a much larger number of jobs to other across the area, across the country. The Tata Advanced System Limited and Airbus Final Assembly Line facility, which has been jointly inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and a Spanish counterpart. Also, if you talk about this C-295 aircraft, it is a joint collaboration of Spain and India. If we talk about the transport capacity, it can transport up to 71 troops, 50 paratroops, 5 industry standard pallets and 24 healthcare units. Also, it is going to boost India's aerospace sector with 15,000 high-skilled jobs and 10,000 indirect jobs that would be created in next 10 years. Then if you talk about other prelims pointer with regard to C-294, it is a multi-role military aircraft that is widely used in the transportation, maritime patrol and as well as medical evacuation. The manufacturer is Airbus Defence and Space. Range and endurance, it have range of approximately 2,000 nautical miles and can operate in some of the extreme conditions including high altitude regions. It has short takeoff and landing, operate on a short and unprepared airstrips, which enhances its usability in remote areas and in tactical environments in some of the areas where war is going on. Also, the C-295 is equipped with advanced avionics, means it have fully integrated tactical system for enhanced situational awareness about the situation, the ground situation that is going on. It is equipped with advanced radar system and various other things. Also, it have maritime and surveillance capabilities, that surveillance missions including maritime patrol variant for Coast Guard and anti-submarine warfare roles are also provided by this C-295. That was all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much and wish you a very happy Diwali in advance. Keep studying.